Currently, the biggest sporting event on the planet is taking place, the World Cup. Tournament where 32 of the best teams in the world face off in order to prove who is truly number one. Well, what if I told you a tiny nation from the east is slaying some of the biggest titans in the world and shaking up the entire tournament? This is the story of how Japan's national team has achieved the unimaginable and has proved Blue Lock wrong. Since the World Cup's inception in 1930, only 8 countries have won the trophy out of roughly 197 countries in the entire world. 2 of these countries, Germany and Spain, happen to be in the same group this year, along with Japan and Costa Rica. In the group stage of the World Cup, 4 teams play each other once, and the top 2 teams advance. Well, in Group E, Spain and Germany were the favorites by a long shot to advance. Very little, if anyone, gave Japan or Costa Rica a chance to advance, and with good reason. Spain is currently ranked 7th in the FIFA World Rankings, while Germany is ranked 11th. Meanwhile, Japan is ranked 24th, while Costa Rica is ranked 31st. They are both behind some teams that didn't even qualify for the tournament, so we can imagine how low the odds are for them to even get a win, let alone advance to the knockout stages. In the first game of the group, Japan faced Germany, coming out wearing kits designed by none other than the illustrator for Blue Lock, Yusuke Nomura, along with fellow mangaka and collaborator Masaya Tsunemoto. Germany started off strong, and it was looking like Japan's tournament was over before it even began. Germany controlled possession, had way more shots, and even grabbed a goal from a penalty in the 33rd minute. Things were looking bleak. Now before we get too far, let me backtrack a little. You're probably wondering how an anime named Blue Lock is even fitting into this equation. Well, if you don't watch too much anime, Blue Lock is one of the hottest trending shows right now. The show about how Japan finished 16th in the World Cup, and the Japanese Football Union has decided to hire Eigo Jinpachi, a man determined to find the top prospect in Japan and mold them into the country's best striker. Eigo recruits 300 of these said prospects to Blue Lock, where they compete in teams of 11, looking to advance to the top spot. The catch? Only one is the winner, and if you lose, you can never represent Japan's national team. It's almost like a battle royale style tournament where ego and selfishness are your best friend. Eigo preaches this throughout the show, that the top strikers in the world have this ego and drive that makes them who they are. Okay, so now we're kind of getting somewhere with this correlation between the two. Blue Lock is out seeking the best Japanese striker, and Japan is currently playing in the World Cup. So we can safely assume that there's gotta be a player on Japan that is just going to make that game-changing play over and over and lead them to victory, right? Wrong. While most of the top teams in the world have some of the best players in the world, and even the best players in the world, Japan is quite different. They are a team with no big names, yet they are here attempting to do the impossible, which starts with that Germany game I mentioned, so let's get back to that. First half, Germany was completely dominant, scoring a penalty kick in the 33rd minute, so at this point, Japan had very low odds of making a comeback. Well, that didn't seem to matter to the Japanese team. They came out in the second half and looked like they were the number 11 team in the world. They were passing and defending well and were playing near perfect together as a team. Although Japan was on the back foot, they did not quit. The 75th minute came around and Ritsu Doan gave Japan the spark they needed, netting a free shot after a save from Manuel Neuer. Quite simply, Doan was in the right place at the right time and provided the perfect backup to his teammate's first shot that was saved. The atmosphere in the stadium had completely changed and Japan was filled with hope. They were going to tie Germany, one of the 2 titans in their group, an enormous result that any Japanese fan would be happy with. Well, Japan's team wasn't done. Only 8 minutes had passed when Itakura played a ball over the top to Asano, where he took the lead from Germany with an incredible, precise shot. The stadium erupted and Japan were going to cause one of the biggest upsets thus far in the tournament. They held out for the remainder of the game and achieved the impossible. They beat Germany, the 11th best team in the world, and slayed the first titan of the group. The reason Japan won was not by any individual efforts, it was purely through the belief of one another as a team. The ego was non-existent. Japan found themselves at second place in the group, sitting just behind Spain based on goal differential. Spain had absolutely dominated Costa Rica 7-0 and were cruising just as they should be. With this result, it was looking very good for Japan though. Costa Rica's confidence was low going into the game against them, while Japan's was higher than ever. We start the second game and it was all going to plan for Japan. They held majority of the possession, had plenty more shots, and were just looking overall superior, and well on their way to securing a spot in the knockout rounds. Then, in the 81st minute, heartbreak struck. A mistake in the back led to a chance for Costa Rica midfielder Keisha Fuller, which he took and scored Costa Rica's only shot on goal in the entire game. If you play FIFA, you know this feeling quite well. It's pure despair. Although Japan had dominated pretty much the majority of the game, they were unsuccessful and obtained their first loss. They were still in second place in the group, tied on points with Costa Rica, but had a better goal differential. At this point, it looked like Blue Lock's theory may have been right. Maybe it really isn't enough to play as a team, but just maybe every team does need that difference maker. That one player to take charge and do what no one else can on the team. This meant it all came down to the final game of the group. Germany were playing Costa Rica and Japan were playing Spain, the final boss and number 7th ranked team in the world. If Germany seemed like a mountain to climb, Spain was Everest. The task was going to be nearly impossible. They were going to need that special thing, that blue lock player to stand out in order to just hope for a chance of winning. Well, the game was going just as the way it was predicted from the start. Spain were out on the front foot. They even managed to grab an early goal from striker Alvaro Morata, giving them a 1-0 lead in just the 11th minute of the game. Japan were on the back foot against one of the best teams in the world yet again. They were getting bullied around the field the entire first half, and it looked like Japan were going home. Well, while nobody knows what happened in the locker room at halftime, one of the most inspirational speeches must have been given because Japan came out an entirely different team in the second half yet again. Within 3 minutes of the second half, first game hero Ritsu Dewan scored an absolute rocket, tying the game once again for Japan. No less than 3 minutes later, a beautiful ball was played across the box, getting past every single defender and almost going out of bounds when substitute Mitoma one time crossed the ball back, saving it from going out by quite literally the thinnest of margins anyone has ever seen, where Ao Tanaka was waiting to score the go-ahead goal. It was an impossible goal for an impossible feat. All Japan had to do now was to hold on for roughly 40 minutes. They had to defend against the Titan Spain, and they were guaranteed a spot in the knockout round. Even with so little possession and being on the back foot pretty much the entire game, well, Japan still continued to work together. They moved as a team, defended as a team, and in the end, won as a team. They achieved the impossible yet again, beating both the 11th and 7th ranked teams in the entire world. Not only that, but based on the other game between Germany and Costa Rica, they had won the group as well. This was quite literally history in front of our eyes. 99.99999% of people would have never picked Japan to make it out of the group, yet alone win it, and they managed to shock the world. This was all in part due to what I'd call the anti-blue lock strategy. You see, Japan didn't win because they have a player like Messi, Ronaldo, or Mbappe carrying their team. They don't have that one superstar to rely on. They had to rely on each other to make the difference. Instead of making the ego as big as possible, the ego had to be completely removed from the equation. If a team like Japan has a player with said ego, the whole operation falls apart. A team like Japan needs everyone to play as a unit. It's the only way to achieve such an incredible feat, and they did exactly that. They believed in one another, and their belief is what has got them this far. They proved millions wrong across the world, and proved the story of Blue Lock wrong too. Don't get me wrong, I love Blue Lock, it's an incredible show. But Japan is direct proof that ego and selfishness are not what is most important. What is most important is believing in one another and working together for that end goal to hopefully win the World Cup. In the knockouts, they face, or maybe by the time you see this, have faced Croatia, and quite honestly, whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter. Because winning the group and beating two teams a lot of people had going very far, if not winning the entire tournament, is a feat no one else but Japan can say they accomplished, and they should be very, very proud of that.